What would you do if you found out the woman you love has been cheating behind your back and you didn't see it coming? I know, just the thought of it is enough to make your heart sink. It's one of the hardest things to imagine, yet the fear of it is something many of us carry, often buried deep beneath the surface. Cheating isn't always obvious. It doesn't happen suddenly. It builds up piece by piece through subtle shifts in behavior that may seem small at first, but are eventually impossible to ignore. Now, I'm not here to instill fear or paranoia. Rather, I want to help you recognize the signs early so you can protect your heart and your relationship before it's too late. Imagine being in a relationship where you thought everything was fine. You've shared laughter, love, dreams, and promises. But then, things start to feel different. She seems distant, disconnected. She's no longer as interested in the small details of your day. She becomes withdrawn. At first, you brush it off as just stress or a phase. But the longer it goes on, the more unsettled you feel. What's happening? You begin to ask yourself. Is this the beginning of something worse? Is this a sign that something is wrong? Maybe I'm just overthinking things, so you say. What I want you to understand is this. Cheating doesn't just appear out of nowhere. It starts small. Tiny changes that we often dismiss because they don't seem important at first. But when you start to see these shifts, it's time to look deeper. It's time to pay attention to the signs before they evolve into something that could break your heart. And in today's video, I am about to uncover 7 subtle but powerful red flags that could indicate your partner is emotionally checking out, or worse, already stepping outside the relationship. These signs might surprise you, and some may be hard to hear, but recognizing them early gives you a chance to take action. Whether that means confronting the issue or reevaluating the relationship. So, without wasting much time, let's uncover them right away. Red flag number 1, she's suddenly more secretive about her phone. Let's begin with something that's very common, and we all experience: the phone. At first, it seems harmless. After all, everyone deserves a bit of privacy, right? But when your partner suddenly becomes overly protective of her phone, something changes. She starts locking it, keeping it face down, or taking it with her everywhere, even into the bathroom. Now, this might seem like a small thing. Yes, we all need privacy. But when the change happens so suddenly and it becomes a pattern, it leaves you wondering, why the secrecy now? What's she hiding? And why do you feel like something is being kept from you? Now, here's what I want you to understand. Don't jump to conclusions. Practical approach. It's crucial not to accuse her or assume the worst immediately. Instead, approach this with empathy and understanding. Talk about your feelings without blame. You might say something like, "I've noticed you've been a little more protective of your phone lately. I just want to make sure everything's okay. Is something going on?" By approaching her with care and concern rather than suspicion, you open up the conversation in a non-threatening way. This gives her space to either explain herself or, if something's off, begin to address it. For example, imagine this scenario. One evening, you're sitting together, and she places her phone face down on the table. In the past, you've never thought twice about her phone. But now it feels like she's deliberately hiding it. Instead of confronting her with anger or suspicion, you ask gently, "I noticed you've been a bit more secretive about your phone lately. I just want to check in and see if everything is okay." Her response can tell you a lot. If she's honest, you'll know what's going on. If she becomes defensive, that's when you know it's time to dig deeper. Red flag number 2. She becomes emotionally distant and withdrawn. At first, you might notice she's just a little quieter than usual. Maybe she's not sharing as much. Her responses are shorter, and she seems distracted. She's no longer the partner you used to talk to deeply and intimately. When someone loves you, they share their feelings and their life with you. But when emotional distance begins to creep in, it can feel like you're losing connection. You might even start questioning your own feelings. Am I being too needy? Or am I overthinking this? So, what do? Practical approach. The key to managing emotional distance is to acknowledge it without judgment. Instead of waiting for the situation to worsen, start by gently expressing your feelings. Invite her to talk about what's going on. You could say something like, "I've noticed we've been a bit distant lately and I miss the way we used to talk. Can we connect a bit more like we used to?" By bringing up your feelings in a calm, non-accusatory way, you give her the chance to open up without feeling pressured. For instance, let's imagine this. You're sitting together in silence after a long day, and you notice she's no longer sharing details about her day. You ask her how work went, and she replies, "Fine." In the past, she would have gone on about the highs and lows. Instead of forcing the issue or retreating, gently say, "I feel like we're not connecting as much lately, and I miss that. Is everything okay?" This gives her the chance to share if there's something on her mind, without feeling like she's being interrogated. Red flag number 3. She stops showing interest in your life. When you first met, she was eager to learn about your day, your friends, your passions. But now, she's distant. She's no longer curious about the things you care about, and it feels like you're talking to a wall when you try to share your thoughts. We all want to feel seen and heard, especially by the ones we love. When someone loses interest in your life, it's a sign that they may be emotionally disengaging and probably creating room for another person or something else. And that's hard to face because it often feels like they're choosing to ignore the connection that used to matter. Practical approach. If you're noticing this, it's important to address it with love. Express how you feel without making accusations. For example, you might say, "I've noticed we're not really talking about my day anymore. I miss hearing about your thoughts and being a part of each other's worlds. What could be the problem?" Instead of accusing her, you're inviting her to reconnect by showing vulnerability and opening the conversation. Example: imagine you share a story about something exciting that happened at work, and she barely reacts. You've noticed this more often lately, so instead of pulling back, you say, "I feel like we haven't been sharing much lately, and I miss that. How can we reconnect?" This approach is gentle but clear. You're telling her that you value the emotional connection between you and want to get back to that place of mutual interest. Red flag number 4. She stops initiating intimacy. Let's talk about one of the hardest things to address in a relationship: intimacy. When we talk about intimacy, we're not just talking about physical closeness. We're also talking about emotional warmth, the kind of closeness where you both feel connected, seen, and desired. In the early stages of a relationship, intimacy is natural, almost effortless. You both desire each other intimately, and the passion was genuine and unsolicited. But over time, when emotional distance begins to creep in, that intimacy starts to fade. You might notice that she's no longer initiating physical affection or sharing those precious intimate moments you once enjoyed. Think back to when she used to give you spontaneous hugs, kisses, or simple touches. Those moments that made you feel loved and cherished. They didn't need to be grand gestures, just small acts of affection that connected you both. But now, she seems more distant. Maybe when you go to kiss her, she pulls away. Or perhaps when you try to get closer, she shifts away or says, "I'm tired." These shifts might seem small, but they speak volumes. It hurts, doesn't it? Practical approach. Now, when you notice this emotional and physical distance, the most important thing is to address it calmly and with care. Don't approach her with accusations or anger. Instead, create an open space for dialogue. You might say, "I've noticed that we're not being as intimate lately, and it's been bothering me. I miss that closeness we used to have. Can we talk about what's been going on?" The key here is vulnerability. By expressing how you feel without blaming her, you show that you care about the relationship and are willing to address issues together. Avoid making her feel like she's being pressured or judged. Focus on the emotional connection and ask her what might be going on. Example: let's imagine this. It's a quiet evening and you try to get close to her, maybe a kiss, a hug, or just trying to be romantic. She pulls away gently, saying she's tired. You might initially feel rejected, but instead of shutting down or withdrawing, you might say, "I feel like we've been distant lately and I miss being close to you. Can we talk about how we can fix this?" This simple, calm conversation can open the door to understanding and Help both of you find ways to restore that intimacy. Red flag number 5, she stops talking about the future. Another subtle but powerful red flag is when she stops talking about the future. Early on in the relationship, the future is something you talk about together. Vacations, life goals, even small plans. You share dreams of the life you want to build together. But when emotional distance starts to form, these conversations start to disappear. Suddenly, she avoids talking about the future with you. Or when you bring it up, she becomes distant, disengaged, or vague. Think about this for a moment. If someone is committed to you, they include you in their plans, their dreams, and their future. If she stops talking about the future, it only means she's subtly removing you from her life plan. When this happens, it can be devastating. It can leave you wondering, do I even matter to her anymore? Am I part of her life or just a placeholder for now? The future is a reflection of the emotional commitment you share with one another. When that future becomes uncertain or absent from the conversation, it's a sign that something deeper might be happening. Practical approach. If you notice this shift, don't assume the worst right away. Instead, gently ask her about it. Open the conversation with care, expressing your feelings without pressuring her. You could say something like, "I've noticed that we barely talk about the future together lately, or even share our plans and goals anymore, and I miss that. I want to make sure we're still on the same page. Can we talk about where we're headed?" Make sure to approach this with empathy. She might have personal struggles or uncertainties, and it's important to give her space to share these without making her feel attacked. For example, let's imagine you bring up a conversation about an upcoming vacation or a long-term goal, and she responds with, "I don't know what I want right now." Rather than becoming frustrated or withdrawing, try saying, "I understand that things may be unclear, but I want to understand where we're going together. It's important for me that we're on the same page." This approach shows that you care about the relationship's future, while giving her space to share her thoughts and concerns. Red flag number 6, she's too busy for you. This is one of the most common and hardest to ignore red flags, the "I'm too busy" excuse. At first, it's easy to understand. Life gets hectic. But when busy becomes the constant excuse, too busy to spend time together, too busy to have meaningful conversations, it starts to feel like you're already being left behind. Here's the thing. If someone truly values you, they find time. If she's constantly saying she's too busy to connect with you, you're left wondering if you're even a priority in her life. How do you approach this? Practical approach. First, be honest with yourself. Are you consistently feeling neglected? Then, approach the situation with understanding and care. Try saying, "I understand you're busy, but I miss us. Can we create the time for us to talk and improve on this?" It's important to show that you value the relationship and that time together matters. Red flag number 7. She doesn't acknowledge your emotional needs. You will agree that emotions are the heart of any relationship. When we love someone, we trust them with our most vulnerable feelings, our joys, our fears, our hopes. We share our emotional needs because we expect that the person we love will listen, validate, and respond with care. But what happens when you express your feelings, your hopes, or even your concerns, and all you receive in return is silence, or worse, indifference? When your partner no longer acknowledges or even seems to care about what you're feeling, it's like being invisible. You've opened yourself up, trying to connect, and all you get is a stone wall in return. At first, you might think it's just a phase. Maybe she's distracted. Maybe there's something going on in her life that's taking her focus away. But when this emotional neglect becomes a pattern, it's no longer a phase. It's a silent message. A message that says, your emotions, your needs, they don't matter anymore. It hurts to be ignored, especially by the person you emotionally trust the most in the world. When your emotional needs are dismissed, it's like a quiet rejection. Your vulnerability is no longer met with care, and the space where you once felt loved and understood begins to feel like a lonely room. So, what can you do when you feel that your emotional needs are going unacknowledged? Practical approach. First, it's important to take a step back and assess the situation clearly. Does it happen just once in a while, or has this become a regular pattern? Is she withdrawing emotionally, or is she simply not invested in your feelings anymore? Here's a key point to note. Don't ignore it, and don't pretend it's just going to go away on its own. The longer you let it slide, the more resentment and distance will grow between you. Instead, take action by opening up the conversation. But approach her with understanding and compassion, not frustration or anger. You could say something like, "I've been feeling like my emotional needs aren't being heard, and it's starting to hurt. I just need you to listen when I'm feeling something, to show me that you actually care about what I'm going through." The idea is to bring her attention to the emotional void without sounding like you're accusing her of wrongdoing. The conversation isn't about blame. It's about sharing how you feel and letting her know that her emotional availability matters to you. You need to feel that your heart is valued just as much as you value hers. This doesn't have to be an argument. It's a gentle invitation for her to see where you're coming from and for you to express your emotional needs. You're simply asking her to meet you where you are, emotionally, without making her feel like she's being accused of something. The truth is, relationships are about mutual emotional investment. If you're putting in the effort to stay emotionally open, but she's pulling away, it creates a growing sense of imbalance. It's crucial to recognize these shifts early and not let them slide under the radar. Yes, you are worthy of someone who values you, not just as a partner, but as a person, as someone who cares about your emotional world just as much as their own. You deserve a relationship where your emotional needs are met and where you feel valued, and we're here to help you navigate that journey. So, take the first step today and start building a relationship that brings you peace and fulfillment. If you found this video helpful, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to Love Breed. Join our community, where we're all about real, honest conversations on love, relationships, and emotional growth. Have you noticed any of these red flags? What actions are you going to take now to protect your heart and your relationship? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. Let's continue the conversation. Click the bell icon so you never miss out on the wisdom we're sharing every week. Until our next vid, let love breed.